Well, thank you.
Syracuse. This is a substitute ordinance approving the Donaldson Transit-Oriented Development Plan. Can you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment to the substitute, and we've been making good progress. There's a proposal about a potential design review committee structure. There's some additional language about the balance between affordable workforce housing and the timeline for how we encourage that, as well as some short-term rental differentiation between what is conditional use and what is prohibited. So we're making good progress, and I would ask for your approval.
All right, do you want to move the substitute first?
I need to move the amendment.
Move the amendment. All right, I have a motion to move the amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And then what else you have now?
That's it, I guess. I just need somebody on the committee to move it as amended.
So moved.
So,
All right, all in favor?
Oh,
can we ask questions, Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Syracuse, can you just tell us a little bit about where we are on the STAR and what we anticipate kind of in the future from an ideal, kind of from a ridership frequency, or what kind of the goals are there? I know there was a
Sure.
piece of that in the transportation plan
Right.
that I think people liked, right? Because that's an existing asset.
Yeah,
Can you just sort of speak to that and how that dovetails with the TOD?
Sure. A fundamental infrastructure investment that we have to make between, I would say, between state, Wilson County, and Davidson County is called positive train control, which is a federally mandated braking system that you have to have. Currently, you can only run 12 trips per week without positive train control. So that's going to be one of the big things that we need to do. There's other things that RTA is looking at as far as improvement to the cars. You know, we got those cars on the cheap, almost a decade ago, and they're wearing out. There's some tracking, double tracking, things like that. All things that we need to do. Obviously, now that the referendum didn't pass, we need to find ways to be able to fund that, whether it's through an increased subsidy from the state or one-time infrastructure improvements. So I've already been talking to my state representative and senator, and getting together with RTA to start to move that conversation. Cost-wise, it pales in comparison to a light rail on another pike. But yes, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
With some recognition, thank you. I think another point to that is I know RTA actually has a survey out in the field right now on late ridership to connect people by bus to this specific location. I mean, I think besides improvements to the train, I think there are those low-cost improvements that are going to make this specific district an important one as a pilot for the whole idea of TOD. So just that having logged a lot of years with MTA while they were administering RTA, it's something I still pay a lot of attention to. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, Chair, Mr. Syracuse, I did want to ask too, like we kind of came up in Public Works Committee, right? We were talking about the MPO,
Right.
and I just wondered to the extent to which, because, as we talk about MPO amending, is any of this, as it relates to the Donaldson Star, ever in their purview? Or I'm not really clear. Could you kind of share how the MPO ties into Donaldson Star?
It certainly could be from federal grants coming through at MPO. Yes, for sure. I believe RTA has tried to get some money from the federal government from grants before for things like positive train control.
Well, how much? What is the positive train control?
Roughly $20 million.
Okay, 20 mil. Okay.
That's
And does that assume then that happens on the engine, right? Or is that an engine and track and?
That's a good question. How that technology actually happens? That it's basically you can braking remotely is what it is. It's basically a technology to be able to allow that. How that physically works.
Okay. I was just trying to understand that, because if we're going to get new cars, but then we have the engine, I'm just trying to think through with an existing asset, how we can make sure regionally we're investing in that to support all this because of all the synergies.
Where does that money come from for the $20 million?
I think that, it's going to come from wherever we can get it, whether it's through federal grant, state, Wilson County, Davidson County partnership. It's going to have to be I would think a collective participation.
And once you get that established, how many extra cars are you going to have?
Well, so right now, as ridership continues to increase, you can put as many cars as you want on there. You just can't have additional trips. So, as we're up 4% in 2017, 4% again this year. So if they keep packing cars, they could put another one on the existing trips. You just can't have additional trips, which everybody wants. They want it on the hour, they want it on Saturdays, and whatnot. But that's the investment we need.
And where do we get the cars? We have to purchase those or what?
I believe so, yeah.
How much they are a piece?
I don't.
And how many additional trips are we wanting to do? Every hour? Or?
Well, the referendum proposal was that on peak times, it would be every 40 minutes and off peak every hour.
Okay.
That would be the goal.
And I noticed this process here may be off base, but understanding now with MDHA, I assume this committee that gets together now, this is something that was added on it, is that correct?
That's one of the amendments. So the state authorizing legislation allows for the plan to be amended either by MDHA or council with approval by both the MDHA board and council. So that's what I've done. I'm proposing a potential DRC makeup that is as far as the number of people or the people from what departments are represented is pretty much how it's done now. It's just proposing that it be a little more balanced between local and MDHA, and as far as the process of being kind of like a board or commission still needs to be vetted out. I'm not sure that that's
Yeah, because I remember
totally
the last time we did, was it 5 Points over here? You remember that? And MDH took that over. We had to come back and fix some of the zoning that MDHA had zoned.
Well, the good news here on this plan, this is where it really dovetails in, is the design parameters and whatnot. The TOD is utilizing the existing urban design overlay standards. So there's no recreation of the wheel here. And so as far as the community support for this has been great because it's utilizing that existing community plan that we put in place almost 10 years ago.
Okay.
Can you speak to, does the TOD and the UDO is the exact same overlay? So does the TOD increase the area of the overlay?
So the UDO is broader, much broader. It goes from on Lebanon Pike from Briley down to Stewart's Ferry. The border, this is also the area that there's a good synergy here. The actual TOD boundary is utilizing really the core of the UDO. So it's not the whole thing. It's just the UDO is broken up into sub-districts. Sub-district like 1 was envisioned almost 10 years ago to be a transit-oriented area. So it's really using that core. It's like 1 and 1A of the UDO.
And is UDO at this point is just optional, like kind of the Green Hill, or it's incentive based, like if you do this, then that kind of thing, but there's no actual.
There's a trigger of about, it's just like if you invest more like 25% of the value of the property, then you have to trigger the UDO standards. That trigger was left to be low because when it was put in place was 2009 and the economy wasn't great.
That's like Green Hills, yeah.
So right, exactly. So that's one of the things we've been talking about now that we're booming and we have a plan that really helps, inject some life into the UDO. Do we want to now make the UDO a little more strict as far as standards and whatnot? So there quite likely will be planning has suggested that we do go through a little review process of the UDO to make those kinds of tweaks to, so we might be doing that.
And as part of that process, do you think, I did have a constituent who contacted me who had some concerns about just kind of the outer edge of the boundary, like he felt that he had a property that he didn't want to be in there, or is that?
So he was at public hearing, right?
Okay.
That's Barry Gearin,
Yes.
and the business he owns is Cash Advance Payday Loan. So
That's not a
easy money.
permitted-
That's one of the businesses that is in the prohibited use.
Okay.
So now he has 7 years left on his lease with easy money. So he's good until there. After that, if he can renew the lease, they can still stay there. But if not, then. But this is exactly why we put him in prohibitive uses, because we don't want any more cash.
Is that the one over in there, Stewart's Ferry Pie?
Yeah, it's easy money.
Right, So I
Yeah, it
guess.
used to be
so from a-
world-class cars,
Yeah,
autos.
the Honda place.
It was
whatnot.
formerly auto. So from a grandfathering perspective, then if he has that existing use, he can maintain that, but at the point that it changes or otherwise, then he would, okay. I appreciate you clarifying that. It asked me to inquire, so.
He contacted Senator Dickerson also, and I had a conversation with him yesterday about that, so it's
The
fair.
only statement I'd like to make is we have to be careful about saying the city's moving. You talk to the employees or all facing tax increases, that's not correct.
Sure, I guess I was referring to when the UDO was first put in place compared to now, sure, I
They'll
understand.
take that.
I hear you.
You're leaving Uncle Bud's alone, right?
Uncle Bud's is not going anywhere.
Leave Uncle Bud's alone.
The chair has his priorities.
Yes.
All right, Uncle Bud's, all right. All right, we've already voted on this. Everybody okay?
No, we voted on the
Voted
amendment.
on the amendment.
All right, but we're voting on it now as amended. Do I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Have a second? Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, next on the agenda is BL 2018-1190, O'Connell. This is amends Chapter 12.44 of the Metro Code to provide free parking at public parking meters in Davidson County for environmental friendly vehicles and for vehicle owners that purchase carbon offsets. I think we're going to have some questions about that, Mr. O'Connell, so I'm going to let you have the floor.
All right, I'm happy to speak to this. And both of these programs are already in existence. As I went through this bill, as someone who holds a green parking permit and has for the past 6 years, I learned a lot, including that the carbon offset program actually currently targets to a relatively obscure qualified nonprofit. There's only one that ever qualified, and actually I have an amendment that I'd like to move that eliminates that program pending further conversations with Livable Nashville and Public Works about whether we even want to do that. There was some conversation about leveraging the tree bank for it or whatnot. Currently, both permits are only eligible within the CBID, the boundaries of the Central Business Improvement District. And especially in the wake of the failure of the transit referendum, I think incentivizing people to be in fuel-efficient vehicles, especially as the mayor's office is proposing smarter management of our metered parking, gives us an easier path to incentivizing that. So basically, this is taking the existing program and eliminating the CBID boundary and saying metered parking citywide for that permit process. And then temporarily, I hope, setting aside the carbon offset piece. So basically simplifying the language for the green parking permit piece so that you're looking at hybrids, electrics, and flex fuel vehicles, and then otherwise just looking at the boundary changes. So the whole program is already in existence. We're basically just simplifying the definitions and expanding the eligibility.
What are carbon offsets?
So as originally conceived, and again, that stuff was already in place, and we're deleting that portion with the amendment. The idea was if you effectively did something that offset the emissions of your vehicle, whether it was planting trees. I mean, there have been a bunch of these programs around the country, and that stuff, because there were effectively no nonprofits locally that had the capacity to certify that, just uptake hasn't been very good, and I'd like to reevaluate that with the Mayor's Office of Transportation Sustainability, Public Works, and see if there is something. But for now, I haven't talked to our office, Mayor's Office, and Public Works. I think it makes more sense to temporarily suspend that piece. So we're ceasing one piece. There is a fund there. We might look to transfer the existing fund balance over to the tree bank, and then.
Well, I mean, you're saying you're doing away with it, but in your bill it says it's for vehicle owners that purchase carbon offsets.
So there, the
Still in the
amendment.
bill or not?
No, the amendment addresses that, so I'd like to move the amendment.
So it takes it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, here.
I just don't think we should be in the business of giving the parking fee free to people that can afford certain cars. When you got people that work downtown that can't afford those kind of cars. I got a lady that lives next door to me. I'm bringing her question to you. She pays $68 a month to park her 2001 Cadillac. And the guy that works with her don't have to pay nothing because he can afford a green car. how in the hell can we tell people that's fair?
So I understand the equity concerns. I also think, though, expanding and simplifying these definitions, a lot of these vehicles have moved into a more affordable place. And I think if we don't put pressure on how to do it, especially as we've had this conversation about whether or not we're even going to continue to do emissions testing, and much of the state has foregone it, you know, if the congestion that is coming into downtown to the tune of 65,000 jobs right now is going to continue to be heavy emission, I think that's problematic. Also, most of those folks are not parking all day in metered parking in our existing inventory. You know, it's not like you can come into downtown and just find every metered spot available. And I think that pricing dynamic is going to change considerably whether or not we go forward with the mayor's proposal or some alternative that's similar to that.
So people that can't afford one of those cars, we're getting on the bound of telling them they can't even come downtown.
Not at all.
Yes, you are.
Not at all.
When you tell them that we're going to try to force them into buying cars.
We're not trying to force anybody to do anything.
Well, then why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this?
The purpose of this is to encourage the if we have a citywide fleet and anybody is going out to purchase a car and they're making a decision between something where it might be more fuel efficient or less fuel efficient, then I would love to have something that says the city is invested in trying to move to something that is more fuel efficient and less emission. I will also say again, this program already exists, and right now it only exists in downtown. I got it. Okay.
Can I get free parking for my motorcycle?
Is it an electric motorcycle?
Huh?
Is it an electric motorcycle?
No.
You already have free parking.
Yeah, you got more parking options than most people do.
You own
Chair.
half of them.
Yeah.
May I ask, so Freddie, I know there was a time when, electric vehicle was a very kind of defined thing.
Right.
Now there's hybrid, now there's flex fuel.
Right.
I wonder, have we looked at from a quantity perspective, I don't know, either through what comes through emissions or at the clerk? I mean, the impact, right, as this market grows and to your point becomes more affordable, like if we have an established kind of free thing and then that's flex and hybrid and
Right.
the implications of that change every year. And so I guess, I certainly obviously support environmental-based legislation to kind of incentivize and move the needle. But as you know also, I have been in this committee when Council Lady Hurt brought a bill for free parking for seniors.
Yeah.
And I opposed that. It's wonderful. We love our seniors, right? But just in that space of, free parking begets traffic. If you have free parking, you drive. I certainly understand that we want people driving fuel-efficient vehicles for those folks who don't have a transit option.
Right.
So I fully appreciate the kind of the complexity of this, but I do have some heartburn just personally because I, from a policy perspective, have really kind of tried to step out there and say, like, let's not do free parking
So
anymore.
it's still revenue based, right? You'd still do pay a fee at the county clerk's office, right?
That's a good point. So it's not
like
necessarily
we're
free.
eliminating. I mean, basically what it is a convenience-based incentive that does not forego all revenue. It doesn't actually make the parking free. What it means is you're basically keeping people from fishing for quarters if they're in this kind of scenario, right? So.
Can I ask, though, too, Chair, I know that the administration is working on a larger kind of parking conversation of curb management and all these assets and shared parking and electric. And I mean, there's a pretty comprehensive conversation
Correct.
going on. Do you think there might be merit, or would you entertain maybe pausing on this a little bit to see if you can make that all fit in together into the comprehensive solution?
So my conversation with the mayor's office is they are totally comfortable passing this and expect to actually incorporate it into the RFP, right? So my personal preference would be not to do that, but I think because Aaron Halfkinshield in particular is aware of it and the mayor's office did not come to me with that request in full awareness that we were working on this, right? I think their expectation is if this passes, we're going to actually work it into that whole proposal. And they know actively looking on the carbon offset thing, I think they'd like to go back and review that. And sure, we might come back with some comprehensive recommendations that look at other things, but they had no objection to going ahead and continuing it.
What impact does it have? Do you have an idea of the impact monetarily on this?
Well, because all the money goes to the clerk, except for the carbon offset portion, which
Right.
then goes to the nonprofit. So for us,
We wouldn't be getting the parking revenue off of the meters.
yeah.
General fund gets the $10 fee.
Yeah,
so
right.
Is there a sticker on the car that says
There's a
they're
hang
You
exempt?
get a hang tag permit.
All right, and how long can they park there? Could they just park there all day if they're driving an electric vehicle?
Yep, there's no way to enforce it otherwise.
So, and then it's only $10 every 3 years?
The 3-year thing is an adjustment from the previous, it's 1 year.
And that makes up the difference. That makes up, when you say
See, that's-
they
that's-
pay at the
yeah.
clerk's office, that $10 every 3 years makes the difference if they was parking, paying for parking. And we don't really need no money right now, that's obvious.
What's gonna happen is just like, I see people that work downtown that have, handicap, but they still work. But they'll park on the street for free and stay there all day long. And that's why I'm asking that question, because I see that happening a lot. And the question is, are we opening the floodgate for other people wanting to have free parking? That's the question I have, just like you talking about the seniors wanting free parking.
For downtown in particular, though, if that's the conversation, that's my point. This is already in effect in the CBID. It hasn't been that kind of thing where it's transformed it into a sea of people just parking all day.
We don't
right?
know that.
We do know that. And I can say from District 19 experience, I absolutely
If
know
you got
that.
a car with a sticker in the window, a hang tag in the window, you don't know who's driving that car.
I'm
And you
saying
can't
those
say you
cars,
do.
based on the number of permits that have actually already
I'm
been
not
issued.
saying that, the permits are there, but that don't mean that the owner of the car is driving. It's just like handicapped stickers that you see
What
at
I'm saying
Walmart.
is the floodgate effect has not resulted in every single metered parking space in downtown being basically squatted in by somebody with one of these stickers.
That's right, but we're encouraging them to do it.
We're not encouraging them to do that.
Let's vote.
Well, okay. All in favor of the proposed amendment?
Nah.
I'm gonna abstain.
That means aye for the amendment.
I heard you.
Nays?
Nay.
Could we, given that, maybe make a motion alternatively, Freddie, to defer it, to continue the conversation so that, or?
I mean, what do you want to have in a continued conversation, I guess?
I guess I think I would like to be able to understand a little bit better and express. I mean, I certainly appreciate where you're coming from, but again, because I have opposed free parking for seniors, free parking, just to, I think we're going to have kind of a challenging conversation that's worth having as a community related to the whole parking management thing. And I can just see how perhaps there would be a higher level of acceptance for this in the context of a larger comprehensive program that the community understood a little better. Nobody's going to lose your part. I think the kind of what you hear is, the fear of loss, the kind of inequity that, this, to your point, it's already in place, but if you kind of step out with this one particular piece, then I think sometimes in the end, that means it's more likely to kind of get chopped off, right? Because it almost becomes like emblematic of some larger problem rather than fit it in with it. I want to support what you're trying to achieve here, but
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because there's some chicken and egg, right? I guess I will also say I'm not yet fully comfortable with the way that the mayor's office RFP is structured,
okay.
right? So there is a part of me that wants to do this piece independently because it's based on an existing program that we have a lot of operational familiarity with. And I don't know what's going to happen with the budget and how the mayor's office proposal is going to fit in with that or not, right?
And I will share, just for context, Chair, I did, at yesterday's Budget and Finance hearing, try to make the point to colleagues that I did not think the administration did a good job, frankly, from a communication standpoint, of advancing the parking management piece.
Not at all.
In the context of, we're going to do these one-time sales of property. These are completely disparate issues, right? They were advanced as this is a revenue generator to make up a shortfall. This is a very important conversation, frankly, for this Public Works and Traffic, Parking, and Transportation to lead on. I think some of us who are interested in these issues as it relates to parking. I mean, it's just,
I
it's
mean, correct me if I'm
inextricably.
wrong, but did this committee even have a special meeting about that plan? Have you all been briefed on?
We have not, and that was what I was going to suggest, is I think it would be to ask Mr. Kelsey and the administration, I'm not sure what their timeline is, but I would like to have a better understanding, and that's sort of my heartburn here. Like, I don't know, it sounds to me, I would hope that what you're trying to achieve would fit right in with this, and we would support that and do it. But I don't know enough about that program. I know you have some concerns about it, so I guess that's my saying. Like, I feel like I should abstain, and I would like to, if we hold back on that, then maybe we can get a handle on that parking management a little bit better. And I have told Mr. Kelsey that. I said, you all need to pull that piece out and just address that differently, because that's an important conversation for the community and the council to have. It's not a revenue generator, make up a shortfall budget, kind of like they just put it out in one communication piece. And I think it, and then right out of the box, everybody's like, that's horrible, we're not doing that.
I will say, even having been involved in this conversation, I think that deserves further scrutiny. I do not take it as a given that initiative will go forward regardless of what approach we take to the budget,
Agreed.
at least without some other concerns and recommendations getting addressed.
Well, I have concerns about it too, if it's going into a bigger picture here. That, I kind of agree with Angie on that.
Well, but that's, my point is, I don't have the concerns about this so much as I have concerns about the bigger picture, because again, we've been doing this for years, right? This program has been in place for a decade.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, but how many people have
How many people
used it?
participate?
How many people have used it? Do you even know?
The clerk would have to tell you, we don't get that data.
So we don't even know how many people use this
I
program.
don't think it's a lot, though. I know in the
It's not a
offset
huge
program, it's
number.
tiny.
The offset program, I don't even think was promoted, but
Where do you now?
Is the offset program available for people
right now, I don't even know.
electric hybrids?
That's why the amendment is trying to delete that portion.
Okay, is it available for people that don't have a hybrid vehicle?
No,
The offset. That's what the offset's
Yeah,
I
that's
probably put in there for as a
The equity
compromise.
piece is probably garnered by the offset, but I think,
so do y'all sell the offsets, or?
It's actually through,
I've got some if you want to buy them. I'll call them offsets.
Jeremy's petting
I don't know
It's
what
like
they are.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
it's basically just a way
Yeah, Bitcoin.
to try.
Crypto parking. There's my Bitcoins. I brought my Bitcoins with me.
Grab my
So there is a certification process that was in the original bill that spoke to which things were actually qualified offsets, right?
That's just wrong, to tell a man, if you go plant 3 trees and 2 daisies, you don't have to pay to park downtown. But you tell an elderly person like this lady next door to me that drives downtown and works, but the state has to pay for her parking. Sorry about your luck. If you ain't able to plant trees and flowers, you'll have to pay for the parking.
And so arguably, she ought to be paying less than the $68 a month by doing the
Does
offsets.
she have access to transit? Does the state pays for all state employees?
I don't even have a damn bus running into
I
Goodlettsville.
just had to ask, because the state does
kidding?
pay.
I ain't
They
got a
they
park.
participate in Easy
We could have
Ride.
voted on that recently.
Let me ask this. And so if I'm driving my pickup truck and I pay the $10, does that mean I get to park for free?
Yeah, because you cleaned your.
$10 plus the certified offsets under what is in place
So I go plant
today.
2 or 3 trees plus $10 and I can park for free.
Certified trees.
Right.
it actually runs through a nonprofit organization, so there's like this website that you have to go in and you have to put in the vehicle type and it tells you how much money has to
Right.
go to the nonprofit for them to plant the trees for you.
We just
Yeah.
planted over 500 trees and no issue.
You don't get to claim your offsets of the trees you plant, Larry.
Larry's like, I just got free
I'm
park
just
for all
planting
the
offsets
acreage.
out here.
That's a heck of an election
Didn't all
campaign.
go and get rich selling
I would be
offsets?
interested to know, just from a data perspective, like how many people are participating, and then maybe just what we think the implications are, again, as flex, hybrid, like that market is really expanding.
Right.
So,
So I'm open to suggestions on what about that knowledge would improve this, right? I mean, we can make it dynamic, we can do whatever, but I guess in
I would-
trying to simplify those
yeah.
definitions,
If Angie wants to make it, I'll support a deferral for a couple of meetings so we can get more information about this.
I'd be good with that. You pretty much know what I'm on.
I know.
Okay with that, and I want it to be a friendly motion. I'm trying to
That's up to the trader.
support you here,
If
but I
you
don't feel
have
like I
a
can vote for it.
specific goal that you're after that deferring 1 to 2 meetings would help you accomplish, I'm
Would
fine
it be to
with
see
that.
the data from the Metro Clerk to know that it's not being utilized that much?
Right, I
Is it
think
something like
I would
that
be
that you-
interested to understand to what extent it's being used, and then also, based on the X number of parking spaces we have, citywide, those assets, based on from the clerk standpoint, and that's interesting to look at too, right? When you go to the clerk and you get your car registration are we saying it's hybrid, it's flex, it's fuel? Are we tracking that to the extent? Because how do we know if this is worth kind of incentivizing, right? If we're trying to move the needle on people making a more green, environmentally sensitive choice. And I hear you, right? If we're going to have all the emission stuff go away, we want to help people
Well, not only
move
that,
them.
if we're not making material investments in transit right now, which we clearly are not going to be for a couple of years,
Right, the
again,
people that are in their cars, we would like them to be making that green choice. But I guess I would just say that, just those companion pieces of data, and also maybe
So
saying,
I guess I would say it's the only way in which it's friendly is if that data actually informs your decision somehow, right?
yeah.
So
I guess I am concerned in supporting it because I have not previously supported free parking for seniors, free parking for teachers, free parking, right? Just philosophically, I feel like free parking begets traffic. And I know there's an offset here because there's the merit.
to me, this
so-
is not about the person or the quality of the person, it's about the vehicle. right?
Understood.
And so it is also not free, it's permit-based, and so it is a permitted use based on vehicle, and right? So the alternative is, the existing program stays in place, it's only available within the boundaries of CBID, it has this goofball carbon offset thing, right? So we can either leave the status quo, or we can try to improve upon the status quo to further incent a thing that we've already, inched into supporting. And, so that's what I'm trying to do here.
So I guess then too, there's sort of the difference of it's in CBID now, right, with a really low fee. I just feel like there is maybe a package of things that rather than taking it countywide, maybe keeping it geographically, increasing the fee, that they're just maybe, I apologize. I'm not well versed in it like you are, but I just.
And I'd be
Make a
open to
motion.
a
Make a motion.
We're in the
Defer.
middle of voting already.
I know, but I'm gonna let her do a motion to defer, and then we can study it more if you want to.
I apologize. You were going to say something.
Councilman Freeman, what do you think?
I would support the deferral, or I'll vote no. That's where I'm at.
I move to defer.
Second?
Do you know how many meetings you'd like to do that?
I'm not the one deferring, so y'all come
One
up
meeting.
with that.
Well, let's give a little more time to get information, I would say.
2.
2.
2 meetings,
All right, 2 meetings.
I'm good with that. Maybe
All right,
somebody.
second?
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Or I made the motion, I'm sorry. In favor, yes.
Deferred 2 meetings.
So staff then, what we'd like to understand is how many people participate in it currently?
Well, I don't think they had,
No, we don't have.
Yeah, they don't have that.
The Metro Clerk. the,
Like
the-
Elizabeth Waits has it.
No, Davidson County.
I'm sorry, David.
County Clerk.
Yeah.
The resident has that.
Try to get an explanation on what a damn offset is.
I didn't even know the program existed. Well, what they say, what they somebody pays the price?
We need to turn that off.
People can do that.
Yes, they can.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.